Hey horror fans, welcome to episode 33 of Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. I am your host, James Ferguson. This week, my guest is Mike Garley, the writer of Samurai Slasher and The Kill Screen. The former is an homage to old-school slasher movies featuring a samurai, obviously, while the latter is set in a world where computer viruses can infect mankind. There's currently a Kickstarter campaign to fund the print run of a new 70-page kill screen collection called Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost. At the time of this recording, the campaign has already met its funding goal and is marching towards some stretch goals, and yes, I backed the campaign. Mike has also recently released a small print run of 666 copies, metal, of a new Samurai Slasher one-shot called Late Fees. There will be a Kickstarter campaign for a new slasher series coming soon where fans will have the opportunity to pick up late fees as well. Mike can be found online on Twitter and Facebook as Mike Garley. He also has a Patreon set up for Killscreen with Joshua Sherwell where you can get some more from that series right away. Quick update for you on some past guest activity. The Colder Omnibus mentioned in the episode with writer Paul Tobin will be released next week on September 27th. I cannot recommend that series enough. So good. Also, a quick reminder, I will be at New York Comic Con in a few weeks. I'm planning on doing some interviews from the show floor, and we'll probably drop these as smaller bonus episodes sometime in October. If you're going to be at the show, please let me know. We'd love to chat, say hello, whatever else you guys do at conventions. Alright, that's it for news, updates, and whatnot. Now we'll jump right into the show. Here's episode 33 of Funny Book Splatter with my guest, Mike Garley.
Yeah, no, don't worry. That'd be good. I've listened to the show before. I've listened to a couple of episodes before,
great,
so I'm not completely oblivious to it. Yeah, it's really cool. Unfortunately, I don't get to listen to a lot of podcasts because I just can't write when I've got noise on in the background. Like I can have music or rubbish radio, but anything good, and I just kind of phase out. So I can't have podcasts on as a rule.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. I find times where I'll be listening to something and then realize I didn't really hear what they've been talking about for the past 5 minutes, and now I'm totally lost. So I can try to get back in. Cool. So why don't we start with Kill Screen, with your new Kickstarter that you got running for Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost. How would you describe Kill Screen just to an uninitiated?
So the Kill Screen is basically what would happen to our world if computer errors and computer game errors infected mankind. How people survive. So everything not saved will be lost is our new series. We originally did a 4-part series, and it went down really well. So we've done this one now, which is kind of new characters, kind of set before the Kill Screen event happened. But basically, we're exploring a world which has gone to hell thanks to technology getting so close to human DNA that viruses can pass over. So we get to take it in loads of different directions, and we do some serious stuff, we do some fun stuff. There's quite a lot of black humour in it. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of the comic. Like I said, it's been going a few years now, so we're excited to get a new story going.
Yeah, I recently read through the collected edition for Kill Screen, and you really hit the nail on the head. I had backed your last Kickstarter campaign too, so I realized I haven't actually read this yet. Let me finally read this, and read through it earlier this week. It's really, I like you hit the nail on the head in terms of it being, well, you got horror, you got you got kind of dark humor and stuff, but I like the effect that it's all technology, it seems, is deadly. So there were some shorts or something towards the back where they showed the event actually happening, and then someone getting a call on their phone, and then that's the catalyst. If you answer that phone, you're dead. You're infected at least, and it's a really kind of terrifying effect considering how often I check my phone on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And
I think that might be why it's done so well. I think it's kind of resonated because people either love technology or they hate it, but either way, it's kind of a relatable concept. So I think it kind of ties into a lot of people's fears and a lot of people's anxieties, and you walk down the street and you see people with their face on their phone. So it kind of, I know it's sci-fi. It's one of those things that is conceivable sci-fi. It's not completely out of this world. Especially some stuff we started writing and planning it's slowly started to come to fruition in the real world that we've seen like storylines that we've been working on or toying with. Some of it's just been a little bit too realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to kind of sidestep that and make sure you try and make it so it's you want things to be realistic but not too run of the mill, not too much like you're reading an article rather than a comic.
Yeah, but I think there is still a, like, if you have some of this based in fact, and it's just like, well, what if your story is like, well, what if this happened? What if it took it to another level? Then it makes it all the more scarier. And I think that's what some of the best science fiction is, when you can see that path of how we get there. I mean, some of it is like, oh, we're out in space, there's light travel, or all this other stuff. But when you can go like, oh, okay, this could happen. We're not that far off for something like this. And I think it resonates a lot more.
Yeah. No, I think personally for me, like my two favorite genres are sci-fi and horror, and I think horror is great because you explore characters and people are in these crazy situations and you just see their base emotions. They don't have time to kind of act; they just respond.
Yeah.
And I think whereas horror kind of we get to explore people, I think with sci-fi we get to explore the world around people. We get to explore everything that makes up our world. So I think we've really tried to do that. We've tried to like push like storylines with religion and reliance on technology and sociology, and we tried to explore it as many different facets as we possibly could.
Yeah, I think the book really lends itself to a number of different possibilities, because while the original series you focus on a core group of characters, and even some of the shorts you focus on that core group, but this is something that presumably is happening all around the world. So there's all these other options for you to see, like, well, how does government react? How does this industry react, or anything like else like that? Like, there are people like, the Silicon Valley, like those are companies that are plugged in. Like, is that like ground zero for something like this?
Yeah, the what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of take a step back from, because in the comic we start, well, basically we start 2 years after it's happened, so we've kind of already seen the ramifications of the event. So we wanted to start before, and we wanted to see kind of what happens to the world to allow it to get into the state where it will happen. So it's a lot slower start, but we've kind of been quite lucky that we've built a bit of a fan base up over the first book. So we think we should hopefully have an audience that will allow us time to do a slower start. But yeah, we do get to look at how the government are going to deal with it and how different social groups. So it's a lot. Whereas the last one was focused on this little core group, this time we're going to have lots of different characters, lots of different walks of life, and seeing what happens to them before, as, and after the kill screen happens. So it's a lot bigger story in terms of scope as well.
Cool. No, I love the idea and everything, and how, like I said, there's just so many possibilities for where you can take this story. Being that it's like a zombie apocalypse, but for technological zombie apocalypse. Do you have the intention of ever going back and revealing what actually happened, what the origin of all this was?
We're gonna. I mean, I don't really like. I'm not a fan of going too deep into origin stories of things. I think like most horror kind of works. You don't need to know exactly what's happened. You just need a gist and to kind of get on with it and move on with the story. Mm-hmm. We are going to deal with some stuff at the beginning, but there's not going to be like one defining event. You're going to see that some stuff's happened before. There's been some kind of errors. There's been some breakdowns which have happened to our world before. But with most things, it's kind of humanity that kind of leads things to escalate. So we're going to kind of focus on that. It's going to be a very very character-driven story, mm-hmm. Like we think the second one was. So yeah, origin stories can work well, but personally, I try to avoid them because they get a little bit formulaic. Especially, there's always a tendency of being too clever with things like this. When you do one story and then going before it and trying to type like absolutely everything into it.
Yeah, you're right. I
tell a good story, and that's great, but it's not something we want to try to do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You don't necessarily need to tell the origin. There's like the comic book completionist in me is always, what is the origin? Like, I think that comes from superhero comics. Is like, what is this? How did it get here? Like, you need everything to find. And I don't think you really need that for horror. I mean, it's nice to have, but it's far from mandatory.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I love like slasher stories and zombie stories and stuff like that. You just get straight into the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't deal with like tedious excuses or rage infected monkeys or that stuff doesn't really help. It doesn't add anything to the story. So yeah, personally, I'd rather get in as quick as I can.
Yeah, and
what we tried to do that with the first bit. Like, is the first bit kind of goes in within the first like 2 or 3 pages, go quite deep into the concept of the book. But yeah, this time it's going to kind of be bubbling underneath the surface, so it's going to take longer to happen. So it's going to be different. It's whereas the last one was done, it was released originally as 4 individual issues. This one's going to be done in like 50-page books.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different format. So it's going to be interesting to see how people react to it. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully people will dig it. It's just need to see, really.
Yeah. Well, so far so good, and that you've already met your Kickstarter goal.
That was incredible how quickly that happened.
Yeah, it was real quick. So that's great. So hope now you're on to stretch goals and whatnot. So I think you're looking like you're in good shape, at least to get that out there.
Yeah.
Now was this book part of? You have a Patreon for Kill Screen as well. Is this part of? Did this come out of Patreon?
Yeah, so after we did the first book, we went on to Patreon, and we've been posting like a page up every single week. And we've been trying to do some extras as well for the Patrons. Truth be told, we haven't been the best at Patreon. We kind of struggle with the time management side of it. It's a lot on kind of getting the artwork ready and not rushing it too much. So people on Patreon have read the majority of the comic. It's just like the last couple of pages to go up. But because of that and that support and how well the comic does in it at cons is why we haven't really had to ask for that bigger funding target, because I think realistically the book's going to cost like $3,500 to print, but we haven't had to ask for the full total because the book's finished and we've got money from like the generosity of our patrons and how well the previous book's done. So that's been great. But yeah, Patreon's been an interesting format to use. We're hoping to get better at it, but yeah, some people have read the story so far, and we've had no complaints. So so far so good.
How has that experience been between you've done a number of Kickstarters now? You launched you have a Patreon, you're back for more Kickstarter. Like clearly, like I mean, if you're back for more for Kickstarter, you kind of have an idea of what works, what doesn't work. Are there things that you're doing on this campaign that you wished you had done on previous campaigns?
It's kind of, if anything, the other way around. Kickstarter is great. You get to raise loads of money. You get to meet loads of new different readers, which has been great for us. However, it is like a full-time job. Mm-hmm. So I've done like 5 before, and it's really kind of intensive, and it takes up loads of time. And like the most successful ones I've done has been, like I've spent a month before or a month or 2 preparing, sending books out, like telling people when it's starting, kind of emailing people, doing loads of prep work, making sure that you've got like 30 sites lined up to drop interviews or previews or reviews of the book when it goes live. With this one, we kind of haven't done that. We've kind of just we've got a schedule. We need to get the book out. We've been really busy. We haven't had time to do the prep. But we kind of know that we've got a readership there. So luckily, that's helped us push us over the line really quickly. But if anything, it would be what I wish we would have done is had more time to kind of prepare for it. Mm-hmm. On the other side, it's not particularly fun spending all that time preparing for a Kickstarter. It's kind of like I probably spend about 65% of my time, 70% of my time as a writer doing the admin side of things. So we kind of just made the decision that instead of delaying the Kickstarter, delaying the book, that we instead would just get it out there and get it to people sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it means that when we go to like a second or third Kickstarter, because we're going to probably do them every year for each of the trades, we should be able to have more time to prepare it and hopefully get the readers that we might miss from launching this one kind of so out of the blue. Because I think we announced on Sunday, I think I announced at like 3 p.m. on Sunday that we were going to do a Kickstarter, and then like 10 o'clock that night we launched the Kickstarter. But we'd obviously knew we were doing it for a while before that. It's just I'm not a fan of announcing things until they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, especially kind of like being in the industry and having so many friends who are doing amazing stuff. There's so many of us at the same time kind of promoting things. It kind of like, I think is a bit overwhelming, like for everyone. So I would rather not promote things miles before they're going to come out and just try and shout about it when it is out. So that's kind of what we're doing retrospectively now. But yeah, that's the main thing we would do if we had more time to promote Kickstarter before. But we've hit the target, so
you're doing something right. So
we can't complain too much.
Well, I would imagine that as you're, this is, just seeing from Kickstarter, your 6th Kickstarter campaign. So I would imagine as you're building up more, a bigger and bigger fan base with each successful Kickstarter, that you could do a little less in terms of that, banging the drum promotion out there. Because if you just send a note going, to the people that backed your project last time to go, hey, I got a new book out, I think you should check it out, especially those that backed the last Kill Screen Kickstarter. It's like, yeah, here you go. Like, just here's more Kill Screen. Enjoy this. Yeah. And that should be like the easiest sell that you have.
Yeah, no, that has been helpful because we have people who kind of email us and ask us when we have more stuff coming out. So we know we have people waiting for it. But obviously, I've done a lot of Kickstarters before. Luckily, they've all been successful and they've all been, I think, all of them, maybe not the first one or two, but like all of them have been on time and everything's gone really smoothly. I think the first one might have been like 2 months late, but that was a good few years ago. So I kind of learned from that experience. So I've got a good track record of producing what I'm going to say I'm going to produce. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's definitely helped when people can see that, well, if they like your stuff and they see that you're trustworthy and you can get stuff to them, because Kickstarter's so competitive now. There's so much good stuff on it. Like, I hate to say it, but I've kind of, because of how much I kind of spend on it, I've tried to drop down to like PDF only on most comics because I just can't afford to keep supporting everyone because there's that much good stuff. So that's kind of the other side of it. You're competing with so many amazing projects now. When Kickstarter was first around, you could kind of like ask for money without even having a complete book, but now so many people have been burnt, or there's so much competition that people will only kind of back something now. Normally, if it's complete or they know the creators already, and like the Kickstarter market is different than the normal market, where like the people that I've met at cons aren't the same people who are on Kickstarter. So it's kind of like you start from scratch on Kickstarter. So yeah, I definitely feel that from doing those Kickstarters, it's kind of helped us get to the point now where, we're funded in 12 hours. I think that is from a lot of kind of people have seen that we can produce things. So yeah, it takes time, but it's been worth it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the hope with all these kind of projects, right? Is that you're able to not feel like you want to come back. You don't want to end up with a situation where I never want to do this again. I'll find other ways to publish my book.
The definition of a career, really, isn't it? When you go back to do something else and hopefully more people like what you did than the last time. But yeah, it's nice to see that happening slowly.
So shifting gears a bit, I mean, I've still in the horror realm. You also work with on Samurai Slasher, which you just had a new one shot come out called Late Fees that I loved.
Yes.
So how does, I mean, it seems like you're kind of like bouncing between like 2 indie franchises essentially, and then I went and I was looking you up more to prepare for this, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, like he's got all these other books that I haven't talked to him about. So how long have you been making comics, and you said Kill Screen you're going to do like once a year, but like are you kind of like bouncing between each of these? Are you like, I'm picturing you spinning plates and each one is a different book.
Yeah, I've been doing comics for about, I don't even remember now, probably 5 or 6 years. So I've done a fair few things. But yeah, I'm working, I think most of us try to work on a few projects at a time if we can. So the Kill Screen's a co-creation with me and Josh Sherwell, who's the amazing artist on it. Whereas Samurai Slasher is my own book, my own property. I can do what I like with it. So it's kind of like an anthology style book. Mm-hmm. So the normal series is lots of short stories, kind of like about the eponymous Samurai Slasher going on a killing spree. It's supposed to be fairly kind of dumb but fun. So I've been doing that for a few years, and once every year or two, one of those books will come out. So yeah, the next month, next Friday the 13th will be when the third book comes out. So basically, I'm not the best at scheduling, so I don't think I've had anything out for about a year and a half, and then like this month, I think I've got about 4 books coming out. So it's a nightmare to try and promote something, which is probably why I like to promote something on the day I'm going to release it. But it's nice to see so much stuff coming out. It's just a shame it's all coming out at once.
Well, there are worse times to launch horror comics than, end of September in October. I had this like stressful moment earlier this week when I realized like I think I have more episodes than weeks in the month for October. I'm like, I don't really know how I'm gonna schedule everything for this podcast to have everything come out when it's supposed to, because I'm like, who knew October was a big month for horror comics,
Yeah, who did know? Yeah, it's the Kickstarter comes. I've tried to do it because Samurai Slasher is kind of a homage to slash films and 80s horror, and like Friday the 13th in particular. The first one I launched on Friday the 13th and ran it for 13 days. So I've kind of tried to keep that, and it's one of those things where horror fans who read Samurai Slasher as well, normally they kind of look out for Friday the 13th anyway, because it's kind of like, oh cool, Friday the 13th. But if they're aware of Samurai Slasher, then hopefully it'll be something else where they'll be like, oh, I wonder if a new book will come out. So it's when I saw this one in October, and then realised that would end pretty much perfectly for Halloween, it just seemed like the absolutely perfect time to do another Kickstarter for it. So I'm now just frantically trying to get that book finished in time. But it's looking good. Like I'm really, really happy with it. Got some amazing art, and it's kind of, because it's the third book, it's kind of ending the trilogy. So I don't know if you read the main story, but it's like I said, it's just about this samurai going a killing spree, and it finishes that story. And then there'll be other ones, but yeah, Late Feeds, I think the one that you reviewed very kindly recently, that's a completely different entity, and it's only Samurai Slasher. It could have been anything really. It could have been, Jason or Freddy or Michael Myers or any kind of horror icon, and it's the reason I used it, because I used the slasher because, well, firstly I love the slasher, but he's a more personal character to me, and that's kind of what Late Fees is about. It's kind of like a personal horror story.
Yeah, it was a great way to deal with deal with grief or process something, especially like from the eyes of a child. And it's like, if you had this creature to kind of fight away all your problems, that's one way of dealing with things. It's probably, I don't know how healthy it is, but it's certainly one way to tackle it, especially through the minds of a kid, to say, okay, well, this is how I can deal with the world around me.
Yeah, I think there's been loads of cool horror films like recently where they've done stuff like that, and they've taken horror in a different direction. And I know they've done it before, but there's been a few things which have really kind of resonated recently, like Babadook and things like that. So it's kind of nice to try and do something of a similar vein myself. But yeah, I wanted to tell a kind of introverted story, but with a weird killing samurai as the lead.
There's a place for that. I mean, that's the beauty of this genre. It's like, yeah, like there's an audience for it, and there's a bunch of people who go, yeah, absolutely, I see it. I see what you're trying to do here. Here's my $5, whatever you need. Yeah,
but this is kind of what I was saying earlier about kind of horror. Kind of, you can explore people and characters, and it's kind of like it completely sticks within that remit of exploring a character. It's just doing it in a different way, but you've still got all of the fun of blood and gore and the dumb stuff that you would expect in kind of an 80s slasher film. But yeah, it's worked really well, I think. And so far the response has been really good, which has been nice, because it is quite a personal story. So I was pretty terrified to see what people thought of it. But yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, you kind of put yourself out there with a book like that more than anything else, whereas like you can kind of hide, like, oh, if they don't like it, maybe they just don't like slashers, or they don't like this. But if that's like a personal story, you're kind of, it's reflecting, it may reflect more on you than like an average comic, so it's got to be a crazy feeling.
Yeah, it's been difficult. Waiting for reviews to come in, but yeah, it's one of those things where I would like it not just to appeal to horror fans,
Hmm.
because I think it's one of those type of stories that kind of should hopefully transcend genre. So I've been trying to push it to other people apart from just like conventional horror reviewers,
Yeah.
uh, just to get like a nice even slate of reviews. But yeah, so far I think we've had 12 or 13 reviews, and everyone's been into it, which has been really nice. But we did a book launch in Orbital, which is like a really really awesome comic shop in England. So we've only actually sold it there so far. So it'll be the first con that I'm going to do is in Scotland this Saturday. So it's going to be the first time I kind of see what a bigger, more mainstream audience think of it.
Hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see what type of tweets I start getting back. People are trying to get money back, or
Yeah, so well, hopefully they come back and go, all right, this was great after seeing it, and not just like, what did you just make me read?
yeah, I expect there's going to be a lot of both. To be honest, it's kind of it's a weird one to pitch as well, because normally it's quite easy. Like when you ask me what the Kill Screen was about, I can tell you. Or if you ask me what like Samurai Sash is about, yeah, again I can tell you. It's a simple premise. But this it's 20 pages, and it's a hard one to sell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been saying it's like Samurai Slasher is based on a fake 80s slasher film about a samurai that goes on a killing spree. It's supposed to be dumb and fun, but then Late Fees isn't that. So I don't really know what else to say to people. So it's going to be interesting seeing people's expectations versus their reality when they read it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because I know you said, well, you could put anyone in that role, but yeah, you could almost pitch it that it's like it's a heartfelt story starring a slasher, just like Jason Voorhees, and picture him as a kid if he didn't die and he was little, he went through some troubles, and this is how he dealt with them.
They call it Jason and Friends. That would have been brilliant.
Jason and Friends. Now you went a different route with Late Fees than you did for Kill Screen and previous samurai slashers. So why not? I know you just expressed some issues with Kickstarter before, but why not go that route to finance that book and go a more, I guess, quote unquote traditional route?
Well, I do love Kickstarter, but like, so Kill Screen kickstarting at the moment, and in 2 weeks' time, Samurai Slasher. I mean, if I did Late Fees as well, I feel bad for one kind of hitting constantly for books and sport. But because it's Samurai Slasher Late Fees, I'm going to make it available to buy like as an add-on if anyone wants to buy it when they hopefully get the third book. So it should hopefully make it easier, because otherwise, like, postage and packaging is so expensive.
Yeah,
so expensive, and you don't really want to be hitting people with that twice. So that's why I haven't even got it on my online store yet, Late Fees, which it's been nice getting emails from people asking me to make it available, but like I don't want to make it available and then people buy it, and then a few weeks later I get people annoyed with me because they got it for free postage and the Kickstarter starts. But it was limited. It was only like I only wanted to do 666 copies of it. I wanted to keep it kind of, I don't know, kind of small and personal, and kind of not oversell or anything. So we made it a limited run. So I think because of that and because of how positive the reviews have been, I think there's quite a lot of excitement for it, which is great. But there's definitely going to be enough books to cover the Kickstarter, so no one should be missing out. But I think doing a separate Kickstarter for it would have just been a bit too much for me and a bit too much for everyone else as well.
Yeah, so you had more than enough on your plate to do that, and it sounds like you have a plan for it in the scheme of things anyway. So it's a matter of just fans will have the opportunity to get it. It's just you got to wait a little while.
Yeah, and it's just protecting friends and family on Facebook and things for me constantly. Like Kickstarters, you just got to promote them so much. It's so tedious. Like I think I've probably got like 4 or 5 friends who've got Kickstarters on at the moment, and like it's just tedious seeing their updates every day. Like it's tedious for them seeing mine, but you have to do it. It's kind of part of running a Kickstarter. So I don't want to do it unless I have to. The cost of the print one wasn't very much, so it was enough that I could cover that myself. But the other ones, because they're a lot bigger and trade paperbacks and there's bigger print ones, it will be a lot harder for me to kind of pay for that outlay from the get-go. So that's where kind of Kickstarter kind of comes in. And also it's great for getting pre-orders, engaging interest. So yeah, it's perfect for those, but a smaller comic, I don't think it would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm tempted to do like another short horror one-off next year. And then I'll kind of play it by ear to see if it's worth kickstarting. But I didn't feel for this one. I think it would have just been too much. I think 3 Kickstarters in a month and a half.
Yeah, then it's like you're out there with your hat in your hands every week. It's like, oh, this guy again? Like, didn't I just give him money? So yeah, I understand.
I'll have like 4 friends on Facebook by the end of the month, which will be lonely.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like the Kickstarter updates and it being tedious. Like that's part of my my daily routine is like, all right, how many Kickstarter updates came in overnight that I have to sit through, and a lot of them are just like, hey, we're still working on the book, or like things are doing well, like share this. I'm like, all right, like I could almost like dictate what they're going to be as I see them pop up in my feed, realizing like, oh, okay, like you're just making sure everyone knows you're still alive. Things like that, and it's tough because I understand you feel there's an obligation there to update people and make sure, like I said, make sure that they're still alive. It's like, I backed this project, but where did they go? Where did they just take my money and run off, or are they actually making the book? I haven't heard from them in a while. But some of them,
I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't really read that many of the updates. Normally you can just tell from the title and the beginning bit, like you said, what type of update it is, and most of the time it's kind of like, oh, it's just a normal regular update.
Yeah.
I can't see any link in here. There doesn't seem to be anything to look at.
Yeah,
I might just leave it for now.
Well, I'm a big backer for digital copies, so I have to scan through it just to make sure they didn't put in like a link. And it's like, oh, and P.S. Here's the copy of the book, and then I miss that, and I never get my book because I just like breeze through the update. Yeah.
It's I think I've done that before. It's the risk of Kickstarter, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't do a good job of managing the amount that I've backed to go like, hey, did I ever get this book? Especially on the digital side of things, because I'll just forget. And then when I will remember is when I'll get the note for the next issue or the next project, and then I'll go, I never read the first one. That's what happened with Killscreen. I'm like, all right, I had this. It was socked away somewhere. And then I got your update saying, hey, we got a new one. And I'm like, oh, man, I have to make sure I liked this before I go out and back this one.
I did. Which Creek I think it is. I got the update for that. Yes. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I love the look of the first one. I backed the first one. And it kind of need to back the second one. I still haven't read the first one, but because I'm only going, like, it does really, really cheap PDFs.
Yeah, it's $1. Like, you can't, like, even if it sucked, it's like, why? Yeah, okay, I'm out of bucks. It's not a big deal.
Looks like worth $1. So that's fine.
No, that was well, I will tell you, it is well worth the $1. I can vouch for that. Both the first and the second issue.
So I was excited. But I must have like a good 100 digital comics to read by now.
Oh, that's a drop in the bucket for me. Both the Kickstarter is definitely over 100. My Kickstarter folder is definitely over 100. But I mean, I'm reviewing comics every week too, so I mean that's getting them from all the different publishers. I mean, again, it's a dumb problem to have. It's like I have too many comics to read. Oh man, like I should not be complaining about this at all.
If you want a good tip for like catching up on what Kickstarter projects you've got, is move house, because then you've got to update your address for every single one. So that's how I kind of learned which ones like I'd received and which ones I haven't. And I've seen there's some projects I backed in like 6 years ago, and they're still it still isn't out. It's kind of like, wow, how are you doing that?
Yeah, I think I've only been burned like I have a good track record. I've only been burned like once or twice of people that are just like, this isn't happening. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it didn't. Everything shit the bed. It is what it is. Sorry.
See, I've still never had that. The ones that are still going to be like 6 years, they still don't like they're working on it. They're just, it's taking them longer than they thought.
Yeah, I have a few of those too that are like in the years.
Yeah, I think Kickstarter, like I said, it's got tougher So I think those projects are less likely to get funded now,
Yeah.
where they were before, because it's happened to so many people. I mean, I did back one project where I backed it as a hardcover, and then it got picked up by a publisher, and instead of it being a hardcover, it took ages, and instead it turned up as like a really rubbish, like floppy comic, and I haven't even picked up to read it yet because I was so annoyed by that. But apart from that, I've had nothing but good stuff through on Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's one. When books get picked up by publishers, it gets a little tricky for me, because I don't like it when the general market gets the book before the Kickstarter backers do. Because it's like I was here and supported you and helped you get that publisher deal, and now everyone else is benefiting for it, and I'm over here waiting. And yeah, there'll probably be a Kickstarter exclusive edition or something like that, but it doesn't change the fact that anyone else was able to just walk into the store and buy it for less money than I was, because I helped make this project a reality.
Yeah. I kind of the amount of publishers now like kind of looking at Kickstarter to get books funded.
Yeah.
Like from the get go as well. I'm not a big fan of backing those ones. I kind of like to back the more independent side of things, because I kind of think if you've got a publisher on board, that's kind of their job. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
They're there to, help create the book and push it further and help it reach an audience, but also to pay for the book in the first place. So it's kind of, why should we be taking the financial risk for you guys? So yeah, personally, I kind of try to steer clear of those. I mean, a few times I've been tempted in, because I'm fickle. Fickle for good comics.
Now I want to jump back to Samurai Slasher for a second, because but specifically to talk about the slasher genre. Was that something that you were interested in as a kid, or and kind of stayed with you? Or is that kind of particular genre, is that your go-to horror genre?
Yes, yeah, I'm a big fan of horror, but I like the lighter, more fun stuff. So slasher, like the slasher genre, really kind of works for me. It's not too dark, it's not too scary. Well, it's not really scary. It's just fun and light-hearted, and especially the old stuff. And it's not by design so much. That's how it is for us watching things now. But when I grew up, I was into like Friday the 13th and Maniac Cop and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely got a big hole in my heart for horror.
Was that how did you get into the genre as a budding young adult, or was that something you came to later in life?
Well, I liked horror as a kid and kind of never kind of got away from it. I didn't start writing horror comics first. I think I did some superhero stuff. Did a zombie comic, which is obviously horror, but I didn't really kind of. Now I do a lot more kind of horror stuff. I'm a lot more horror orientated. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably happened over the last 5 years or so. But I think it's just, as a writer, I kind of got to know my own voice, my own style a bit more. And whereas I still like, other stuff, like other genres and superhero stuff and stuff like that, as a go-to, it's kind of sci-fi and horror now are my main ones. And that's just where my storytelling style kind of fits. But yeah, I like serious stories and I like dumb stories. I think the main thing is for them to be entertaining and fun. And you can tell like a really serious story, but it should still have fun. It should still be enjoyable. And I think that's kind of what horror kind of does best, in my opinion. It tells these stories which can be, dark and scary, and they can still be really fun. And it's a hard tightrope to walk, but horror seems to do it really well, which is why I love the genre so much.
Yeah, that's it. That's something you hit. I love that point. There is that they should be fun, and there's different classifications of fun, especially when you're talking about horror, and it's like, this was fun as I watched this guy get eviscerated by a masked killer. But there's also this like a level, like, you should have enjoyment of it, and if it's just too doom and gloom and like gritted teeth and all this, it's like, all right, like there's something else. There's other things out there that are doing it better. Like I need to be able to have some enjoyment out of a book. So that's what I found when reading so many of them. It's like, all right, there's nothing like fun here. And when I write reviews, I try to capture that feeling of like how I felt when I read the book. And if it's disappointment, like I don't get mad about books. I'm not gonna like just like, you know, shit all over a book if I didn't care for it. That's not going to benefit anybody. But it's more about like, well, how did I feel about it? Did I love this? Was I like so excited? Was I terrified? Was I disappointed? Like there's different facets to it, and I find that's like what really comes out in this genre in particular.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think some people are kind of, because of what I'm like with story, and you know, I've studied storytelling and spend a lot of time talking to people about story and storytelling and structure, and you know, all the stuff that goes with all the academic side that go with it. People are always kind of surprised that I'm so into horror and stuff, but I think it's kind of it's just got a fun element to it. It doesn't matter how, you know, if something's high art or low art or anything, it needs to be enjoyable. It needs to connect with you on some level. And I think horror is just one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, it never really got its proper due with a lot of things. So it's you know, I'm hoping that it, you know, sooner or later it'll get its time in the spotlight. Like it's not taken seriously, it seems, with a lot of like the Academy or whatever, but yeah, sooner or later horror will get its fair shake.
Yeah, which is why horror comics is such a hard sell.
Yeah, it's funny, but I found like the audience for it is certainly there. It's just like, and it seems like everyone has like a horror line of some, or like you know, some horror books. I mean, even Archie has their own horror comics, so they're all out there, and because there's a part of the genre that everyone loves. But it's funny how it's like sometimes it's kept to the side or something like that, where it's not like, oh yeah, we do horror comics, they're over here, like. But it's a key factor in this industry right now. Like there's so many people that are doing it and doing it well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, you look on the indie scene as well, and there's a lot of great horror stories. Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's a genre that does well, and like in films, it's one of the highest grossing genres as well. So yeah, there's definitely the audience there. It's just it might not have. Well, I think it is it's starting to get more mainstream recognition. I think stuff like Walking Dead is kind of opening doors for it to be a bit more accepted, a bit less weird, you know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny, like between The Walking Dead and like Game of Thrones for fantasy, it's like genre fiction is getting more time in the spotlight than ever before. But there's also like everything could get compared to that too, so it's like a double-edged sword. So you know, any zombie book that comes out now is going to be immediately compared to The Walking Dead.
Yeah. Well, the kill screen, and I actually quite like. I don't like things being compared to something, but the kill screen was compared what described as The Walking Dead meets Black Mirror, and that was something that I really liked.
Yeah, no, that's a great description for it. That's very valid.
Yeah, but these kind of descriptors really help people who are new to like comics to get in. So it's nice when you've got stuff happening on a mainstream to mainstream audiences for film, mm-hmm. that it's easy enough for them to kind of have something comparable that you can pass it over to.
Yeah. Now, with Killscreen and in your work on that, have you noticed a change in your use of technology?
No, not my use of technology, but the amount of times that an article will come up and I just kind of roll my eyes at it a little bit. That happens a little bit more.
Yeah.
We obviously did a lot of research into, you know, everything that was kind of happening, everything that we could, and it's kind of incredible seeing everything slowly improving and technology progressing. It hasn't changed how I react with it. I might just be a bit more fearful of it. But also, I've got a 12-year-old daughter, so my relationship with technology now is more, you know, put the phone down. It's more. No.
Yeah,
and,
that'll change things a bit.
Until she started talking to me about like I don't even know what. Like, she's on different platforms and things. And yeah, I'm old now. I didn't know, and now I am. It happens quick. Technology makes you get old quick.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Well, and I understand that sooner or later I'll get to the point where I don't understand technology. I mean, well, shit, it's already happening. Like, I don't get Snapchat. Like, I don't understand why people use Snapchat.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm too old for it. Like, I'm not in that demographic. I'm totally out of it. So I just don't use that platform. And then, like, I talk to, like, the younger people at work, and they're, like, Snapchatting back and forth. I'm like, I have no earthly idea what it is you're doing or why you're doing it. But good for you. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I still can't get and this sounds stupid, but I still don't really get WhatsApp. I obviously understand how it works,
yeah.
And I've got WhatsApp. I just don't understand why we need it. I was like, we're adults, can't we just text each other?
Yeah, I felt the same way with Instagram too. Of like now it's the old man complain podcast.
It is. I like this. Are you wearing slippers?
Yeah, I don't get Instagram because I'm like, well, if it posts to Facebook anyway, why don't I just post it to Facebook? Like, what's the point of Instagram to do it if I'm going to share photos with less people?
I'm not the old person. This is great.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
But on the other side of that, I've got another daughter. Well, I've got 3 daughters. And as soon as they see a screen, they will immediately go up to it and they will touch it.
Yeah.
Because their relationship with technology is different to ours. When we were kids, screens showed a picture, and now their default for seeing a screen is that it's touchscreen technology. So it's kind of if things are bad now, they're going to get so much worse in the future.
Yeah, I remember, like, you weren't allowed to touch screens because you get your fingerprints on them, and now you're encouraged to do so. I have two young boys, 2 and 4, and they'll see like a picture. My oldest saw a picture of in like a magazine. It was a picture of like, oh, go online and watch a video of how to do this recipe, and he was just like pressing the button, and he's like, nothing's happening. Why? What's the deal here? And I'm like, well, it's not a video, it's a picture of like, I don't even know how to explain this to you, because like, you don't have like the pieces to understand what the heck that is right now. So I'm just like, it's broken. Okay. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. It's strange, our relationship with technology, especially when you put children into the mix. But yeah, like, these are some of the ideas that were kind of floating around my head when we kind of came up with the kill screen. And it was also like, I don't know if you've been using technology and been really, really tired, but I was working really late. I was on the computer all day, and I was on Photoshop a lot. And I don't know if you use Photoshop, but you can undo by pressing Command Z.
Mm-hmm.
But I went downstairs and I dropped a glass or something, and I was like, oh no, I need to undo that. So I thought, I'll just Command Z, because it's real life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how easy technology can kind of merge with our reality when we get a bit tired.
Yeah, like, that's why, like, you shouldn't go out and like, if you've been playing Grand Theft Auto for a while, it's probably not a good idea to go out and drive, because you're just thinking like, oh, I can just bump this guy or do this. Like, it's probably not a great idea.
Well, yeah, you take any shortcut you like.
Yeah. Or like, even that's what I'm wondering, how like virtual reality will affect people, because if you spend too much time in there, like, that might be a whole other experience to and how you see the actual world versus the real world.
Yeah, I don't think we should have a good few years before we have to worry about that. When you see the amount of people who VR goggles on and then immediately fall over because they can't quite grasp the fact that things aren't there. So that actually happened with one of my friends. He did that, and it was funny, but also you immediately emphasize, you're like, oh yeah, no, I understand how that can happen now.
Well, yeah, it's maybe that's in a future edition of Kill Screen that we'll see coming down the line.
We'll have people putting on goggles and just falling over a little bit. I mean, it's not the threat we've been used to, but it's definitely relatable.
Yeah. Well, look, Mike, this has been an absolute blast chatting with you. We'll obviously link the Kickstarter campaign in the show notes for this. There will still be plenty of time for folks to back the campaign when this episode drops. But otherwise, what are the best places for folks to find you online?
I am on Twitter at Mike Garley, and that's MikeGarley. And I have a Facebook page as well, which is under Mike Garley as well. Apparently I'm fairly egotistical like that.
And we'll link we'll link the Patreon as well if you want to help. If you want to help out and get if you can't wait to get Kill Screen, you could back the Patreon and get it on a regular basis through the Patreon backer updates. I don't know the right word for that.
So it sounded good to me.
Cool. All right, so that's about it then for this episode of Funny Book Splatter. I have been James Ferguson with my guest Mike Garley. You've been listening to Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. We've been bringing you the best in horror since 2002. In addition to comics, we cover movies, TV shows, books, and video games. We've got news, reviews, guest features, interviews, unboxing videos, and much more. Be sure to sign up to Steve's Deals newsletter to increase your horror collection without breaking the bank. Check us out at HorrorTalk.com and at HorrorTalk on Twitter.